What's the best thing you can do for your spiritual growth?
Be kind, generous, and serve someone who is saintly. That will unlock the door for everything.
Why can't a dog enter a temple?
What if it does like a susu or a pee-pee?
Can spiritual people lie?
Yes, they can and they should at times.
Is it wrong to question what's written in the scriptures?
You should question what's written in the scriptures. I can say for myself as well, like I'm no exception. We humans are very selfish people.
Bad things sometimes happen to good people or religious people or people who have faith in God. Hi everyone, my name is Krishangi and I'm 17 years old. For the last few years, I've been visiting some really holy places, and I used to come back from those pilgrimages and I used to talk to my school friends about my experience. And I realized that they actually used to resonate a lot with where I traveled. When I traveled, I had a lot of questions about spirituality, about religion, and the meaning and purpose behind life. And funnily enough, they also had this very similar questions. So I actually have a special secret that not everyone has. I have a father whom I affectionately call Baba, and he's sitting right next to me. And he's been studying the scriptures for over 20 years, isn't it?
Yeah, just over.
And we can certainly tell so because he's got some white beard coming in.
Thank you.
You've also got a company called Whitebeard, and he also does some insurance, some blockchain, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So I think we're in safe hands.
Hopefully.
All right. So I think we're ready for some questions. Are you ready, Baba?
I hope so. I hope I can fulfill the desires of people, the desire for wanting to understand some things, so we can give it a go.
All right, cool. So my first question to you is, what's the difference between spirituality and religion?
I think this is a question that everyone has. It's the most asked question. The short answer is that religion is simply an organized form of spirituality. So, for example, there was a lady who once decided that she wanted to formally structure some understanding that she had about spirituality. So she wanted to include some yoga, some meditation, some reading of certain texts. And so then what she did was she invited some friends over. And she had maybe like 3 or 4 friends come over. And then as they got going and they started doing this, they realized that quite a few other people were interested. So then the question is now, what do they name their little group? Because if they're going to invite the public, what should the name of that group be? And then what kind of food do they serve? Do they serve vegetarian, vegan, non-veg? So again, that has to be thought of. What time? What principles are they going to abide by? Now, as soon as that is structured, suddenly you've just created a new religion.
Okay.
So spirituality is a base thought process to link the individual soul with the divine. Okay, that's the goal of spirituality, or it should be the goal of spirituality. And then religion is simply a path that one adopts in order to achieve that purpose.
Okay. So is someone who's spiritual also allowed to not believe in a God?
Well, that's like saying, I want to be a good citizen, but I have no belief in the government. So actually, spirituality is intrinsically linked with God, whatever you want to call God, but we understand God to be the ultimate cause of everything that we see around us. So you can be spiritual, but it has to have a basis, and that basis is that supreme power.
Okay, thank you for that answer. So my next question to you is, do humans actually have free will?
Do humans actually have free will? This question needs to be understood quite deeply. So I'll give a short answer and then I'll give a more qualified answer. or a longer answer. So the first thing is that humans have something which is called, or best referred to as, conditioned free will. Okay? So absolute free will resides with the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Being, God, whatever you want to call him. But we have conditioned free will, which means that the conditioning can, or movable free will, that's another way of putting it. So it means that when we are extremely conditioned by by nature and by certain energies, then our free will really becomes cramped. But as our real spiritual selves start to open up, then our free will begins to expand. Okay? And how we can understand that is that if we had absolute free will, okay, then we would get everything that we want in our life. But we don't.
Yeah.
In reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
That
We can't get like everything. Like if I want a pizza right now, I can't get a pizza.
Yeah, you can't. So absolute free will means that whatever you want at that exact moment, you'll get it.
Okay.
But conditioned free will means that you can get what you want, but with a certain amount of exertion, right? Like you spoke about a pizza. So if I want a pizza, the first pre-requirement is that I have to have enough money. Then I have to have access, and then I have to have an appetite.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the three preconditions which are required. Okay. And then I can access the pizza. So if you talk about like base free will, we have the ability to desire, but not the full ability to execute.
Okay.
Okay. But also we should understand that even what to desire, that is where a lot of the problem is, right? Like you might say that I want a pizza, but is a pizza good for you? So I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have someone who is diabetic, okay? And let's change pizza to ice cream. Now, someone really wants ice cream, but they're not allowed because the doctor has told them that you're not allowed ice cream because of your condition. Now, you can go for diabetic ice cream, obviously, but they want the real full vanilla ice cream with sugar. Okay? So the thing is that can they use their free will to not want ice cream? Often we find most people succumb to their own desires despite something not being good for them, and still going ahead and doing it, still going ahead and having the ice cream, still going ahead and having the pizza, still going ahead and shouting at someone, even though they know that it's not good for them. So actually what happens is that people are very conditioned, and to the degree that they're aligned with their real, true, authentic self, to that degree, they will actually gain more and more free will. But to the degree that they don't even know what's good for them, they don't have the intelligence to understand what is right and what is wrong, to that degree they will be conditioned. And to that degree, they're actually acting on the impetus of the energies of this world. So the energies of this world are pushing them towards a particular direction. And so they think they're acting under free will, but they're not. And someone can ask, where are you getting this idea or thought from? That in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very foundational text for this kind of knowledge, that Sri Krishna says to Arjun that everyone is forced to act under the modes of nature, depending on which modes. So there's three of them, right, which I won't get into just right now, but there's three different modes of nature. And the one which you are acting under is actually that mode of nature, that energy, which is actually pushing you towards that action. So you think you're doing it, but it's actually not you. You're vibrating on a particular frequency, And that frequency is actually what is pushing you to do it.
So, like, conditioning is like a set of limitations that are stopping you from having what's known as like complete free will?
Yeah. So it essentially means that there are three basically energies which are acting. So now maybe I'll just get into it. They're in Sanskrit, right? So anyone who's done yoga, so today a lot of people do yoga. So if you've done a little bit of yoga and you go into the depths of the philosophy of yoga, not just the breathing and anulam vilom and pranayam and all these things, right? These are all just Sanskrit words. So using the same texts which this has all come from, we come across three types of energy. One is basically a ignorant or a destructive energy, and that is basically what is known as tamasic. Tamas in Sanskrit just means darkness, right? So dark, destructive, ignorant, right? So that's tamas. Then there's something called rajas, right? A second energy. So tamas is quite low. Rajas is like this, the next step up. Rajas is creative, right? It's a creative energy. It's another word is it's a passionate energy, because through passion creation happens, right? Through the passion of a man and a woman, a child is basically created. Through the passion of music and an individual, or instruments and an individual, music is created.
Okay.
Right? So that's passionate. Anything which is creative, right, comes under that energy. And then there is an energy which is called sattvic, and that is resonating with truth, with peace, with cleanliness, with maintenance. Okay, that is called sattvic. Now, depending which of these modes you're influenced by, predominantly, these modes will act on you. Okay, so for example, if someone shouts at you, okay, if you are vibrating with tamas, you will, because you have that dark, destructive type of energy dominating in your body, in your consciousness, you will shout back.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll shout back at them. You might even shout louder, shout harder, right? You might even punch them. Okay, if you're vibrating on the level of rajas, it will still affect you, right? So you will try and you'll be hurt, you'll cry, you'll try and reason with them, right? So you're a little bit softer, but you're still trying to make sense of the situation. And if your predominance is sattvic, right, you won't mind too much. It'll hurt you maybe for a few split seconds, and then that energy will say, you know what, don't bother. It's fine. This was in your karmic destiny that you're supposed to be shouted at. Never argue with the fool, because no one will know which is the greater fool from the two of you. So then the idea is sattvic will push you to say, all right, you know what? There's no point. Let me just leave it. And so can you see how free will act depending on which mode you're conditioned by?
So, like, if someone is like vibrating on a specific mode, as you say, so like, say they are under the mode of sattvic.
Right.
Now, have you heard of this saint called Rumi, the Sufi saint?
Yeah.
And he said that like the way that you react to people is a reflection of who you are as a person.
Perfect.
So what if someone's like vibrating on a really like tamasic sort of plane? Now, will their like sort of vibration influence your vibration, or will you always stay on your vibration?
If you spend time with a person, so I think there's two levels of spending time with a person. One is incidental, one is incidental, and one is voluntary. So spending time with someone incidentally, it won't influence you too much, right? It's like something touching you and then bouncing off.
Right.
And one is voluntary. So incidental means that, let's say I vibrate on a very high level of consciousness, okay, which we've just termed as sattvic, right? Goodness, ethical, all that. And then I happen to meet someone in a supermarket because I know them. And we just say hi, how are you, everything okay, right? That's incidental. That will not affect me. Okay. And even if it does, like let's say they're very like low vibration, it'll just brush off me very quickly. But then there is voluntary. Voluntary means I say hi, how are you, and then I decide that shall we meet up for coffee. And
Mm-hmm.
now we start exchanging ideas. And that means, for example, and this has happened so many times, which is why I can use this. So if now that person is vibrating at a low, very low frequency, a tamasic frequency, or a very passionate frequency,
Yeah.
right? Then, and they say, oh, like, have you seen this chick, by the way? And he shows you a picture of like a naked, girl.
Yeah.
And that's not the way you are as a person. But
Okay.
slowly that will start forming impressions in your mind, and that voluntary association with that person will start lowering your frequency as well.
Okay. So we have to be really careful who we associate with if we want to maintain our plane of energy.
Extremely. So actually scriptures, the Vedic scriptures, for example, which is where I draw most of my examples and ideas from, they are they very emphatically state that you have to be very careful who you spend time with. And even in kind of like modern thinking, you are the summation of the five people that you spend the most time with.
I've noticed that, like, especially in my generation, like, social media is a huge thing. Like, how many followers you have. Oh my gosh, this person has 1,000 followers. This person only has like 200 followers. So I feel like people think that having the contact of like many people is actually better than just having a contact of like just a few people who you like personally know and are just like very close to you. So what do you think about that?
So the truth is that real friendship, which warms the heart, can only be gotten by a few sources. If someone says they have six best friends, I don't believe them. They don't have time for six best friends,
Yeah.
no matter who you are, right? If you are just a real person
Mm-hmm.
and you want quality time, then it's limited to maybe just like a few people. So maybe like
True.
if you gel well with your parents, for example, because they're your biggest well wishers, so you have two of them, then a few cousins,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe one or two friends. Okay. And those one or two friends, they give something from the outside, maybe something that your family can't necessarily give you, right? It's not that your family can't give you, but it's just something nice, right? Just something a little different. Um, so I would say that when you now start seeking validation from so many people, from thousands of people, there is some embedded insecurity
Mm.
within you. Something has happened, and we're not blaming those people, but something has happened, either in their childhood, something that their parents have said, or a narrative that they've developed in their mind, that if 1,000 people say that what you're doing is right, or we like what you just did, or we like what you're wearing, all these things, then society approves of you. So your mood is very much dependent on what the world thinks. And social media has exaggerated that emotion. It's always there, it's always been there.
Because like I see that most of the reasons that, like, why people post is because they want to hear comments of, oh my gosh, you look so beautiful, I love your dress, I love this, I love that.
Yeah.
So I just find that, like, I don't know, part of me wants to be away from social media because of this, because I find it so fake. But at the same time, it's really difficult because, my friends post like their lives. Some of them are in the UK, some of them are in India. So I just want to, like, I want to be in tune with what they're doing. So it's just really hard, like, to strike that balance of, like, okay, so, where's the balance of, me conserving myself and being away from this toxicity versus me actually being involved in what my friends are doing and just, like, enjoying and like to see them out there and stuff.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of thoughts, right? That nothing is all evil and nothing is all good, right? Except spirituality, right?
Okay.
Spirituality is all good, and anyone who promotes the idea of anyone who promotes the idea of spirituality, there is an all goodness in there. Okay, but if you look at like the material plane, nothing is all good and nothing is all bad. It's how we choose to engage with it, depending on, again, how we vibrate and what we value. Okay. So coming back to just your point about, validation and all these types of things, at the end of the day, I think what we ultimately have to realize is that it's ego, right? Which is, you can say, it's a root structure within our consciousness, which is seeking to be validated. It's ultimately the ego. So, what the task of spirituality, yeah, and which it does very well if we do the right spiritual practice, is it eventually starts to what they call purify the ego. There's two schools of thought that either you can nullify the ego or you can purify the ego. Nullify means to reduce it to zero. Purify means use it, allow it to live, but make it function in its most optimum way. And so based on the studies that I've done, I prescribe to the purification of the ego more than the nullification of the ego. Don't kill it, purify it. When the ego is very purified through a decent amount of spiritual practices, engagement, it really starts to be very comfortable with who you are.
Yeah, because I've seen like there's certain like saints and they don't care what other people think about them. They don't have this idea of like, oh, I need to look like this. I need to present myself in this way. They appear so like peaceful.
Yeah.
And I just wonder like how are they that peaceful? Because like even right now as we're doing this podcast, because it's the very first time I'm doing something like this, I'm a bit like scared, like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like,
What will people
what
think?
will people think? Exactly. So,
Yeah, it's natural because remember, there's a conditioned state, which we're all in, yeah, including myself, and there's a completely purified state. And obviously, there's many states in between, right? It's not like you just overnight wake up and you're like, right, I'm in a new purified state now. It's a process. Every day you work at, trying to become more and more purified, right? Until one day you hit a level where in the Bhagavad Gita, again, I refer to this text, where Shri Krishna says that na sochati, na kangshati, right? I use Sanskrit words just to give validation to what I'm saying. Na sochati means that, there is no lamentation of what happened in the past. I think a lot of people ruminate that if only this had happened, if only things worked out differently, then I would have been happier, all these things. So the verse says, Brahma Bhuta Prasan Atma. When one experiences true divinity, Brahma Bhuta, right? When the living entity experiences true divinity, it says na sochati. It doesn't lament over anything. And na kangshati, which means it doesn't desire anything. Things may come and many things may come, thousands of things may come in that person's like life, right? Amazing things may come, but it doesn't get attached to them. It just, that person uses them in its best place, right? So, for example, there is a sage who has become very, very famous, okay, in recent times, and cricketers like Virat Kohli, Anushka Sharma, recently even Shilpa Shetty,
yeah, I've
and
heard, yeah.
yeah, and Raj Kundra. So his name is Premanandji Maharaj. Some people
Yes.
call him Premananda Baba. Now, something very interesting that he has lived as a sannyasi his whole life. Sannyasi meaning someone who's never really had possessions
They're
and
like
who's never,
celibate.
yeah, but more than just celibacy, he doesn't own anything. right? Like he's never had anything to his name, land. He lived just as a pure sage would live. He used to sit on the banks of the Ganga for like 2 decades, and he was trying to realize God. And then obviously his journey went further and he came to this holy place called Vrindavan. Now, if you look at Premanandji Maharaj right now, there's something interesting that he's become so famous that thousands of people are giving him money. And not small amounts of money. I'm sure he's got crores and stuff, but he doesn't have anything in his personal name. I don't know exactly what structure he's done, like a trust or a charitable trust or whatever. And everything that is coming into his life, right? Even the cars that he uses right now are basically like, like I've seen Porsches, I've seen Audis. I think that's not the point. The point is, he's not gone and ventured and said, I want this car. Either his disciples or the people who love him have just said, here, take this, use this.
Okay.
So the utility becomes the principle, right? Na kangshati, you don't desire anything. So things may come. I think that's where people get confused, that saintly people shouldn't use anything. No, they can use the best of things. But there's a saying, you can sit in the car, but let the car not sit inside you. And that's the critics will always try and see flaws, that, oh, he's a baba, why is he using such things?
Yeah.
But it's how you utilize things. And another really good example I want to give is someone who is very revolutionary, and that was Srila Prabhupada. Because one time, so many rich people were coming to him, and they all had gifts of Rolexes and Omegas and all that kind of stuff. And Srila Prabhupada just put out his hand. And at one point, if I remember correctly, he had so many watches on his hand. Okay. And he's like there. But then he took those watches and then he just distributed them like someone would distribute like chocolates and sweets to everyone.
They were like Rolexes?
Yeah, Rolexes, Omegas, and
Wow.
everything. So people work their entire life to attain one of these. But when you hit a certain point where you're attracting the best of material nature, Srila Prabhupada would be picked up in Rolls Royces at times, right? But again, he never said, I want these things. He allowed them to come, and then he thought, what is the best utility for this? And that's how you function when you reach this very high state. Na sochati, na kangshati. So coming back to social media, because obviously we've gone on a little bit of a journey with that principle. But coming back to social media, here's the thing, that as as we grow more confident in our real identity, who we are, what is our purpose, then we don't need validation from anybody. Exactly what you said, that you can be on social media or you are not on social media. It doesn't matter. But if social media helps to spread spirituality, your cause, right? If it helps to get people enlightened, you'll use it, but you don't seek validation. It's out there. Whoever catches on, they catch on.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So my third question to you is that now that we've talked about validation and like sort of like society's sort of critical sort of outlooks, like Brahmananda Baba, he's constantly like scrutinized for what he's doing. As you said, that some people will, judge him because he's been picked up in an Audi or a Porsche. Now, I feel like in this day and age, there's a lot of societal pressures, family pressures, self pressures on individuals. And I feel like as a community, we're struggling a lot with mental health. I know a lot of my good friends, they've been struggling from depression, from anxiety.
Yeah.
And so can spirituality help in these sort of areas?
Yes and no. And I'm saying this from like experience rather than just book philosophy. When I say that, what I mean to explain is that spirituality can help some people because it gives a really solid framework. Okay. understanding that there is beauty, there is divinity in everything. And for example, if someone is in anxiety about their mother dying, let's say that their mother has been diagnosed with cancer, or their relative has been diagnosed with cancer, and they're in anxiety that what if I lose this person? What spirituality will do is tell you that actually this person is immortal, right? They can't die. The only thing that changes is the dress. The soul is eternal, but it's just a dress that comes on top of the soul. So, but someone can say, well, but I'm attached to the dress. So spirituality will say, well, that's where the problem is. You're attached to the car, but actually you should be attached to the driver.
So it's like we're all in a play and we're all actors and we have a specific costume. So we're attached to the costume but we don't realize that we're actually just an actor, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we've become attached to the costume.
Okay.
And not to the person who actually is beneath the costume. So that's what spirituality is trying to push. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so the first thing I want to say is that spirituality brings a lot of structural context to our life's outlook. However, I also want to say, because I said yes and no, a lot of times depression is because of, let's say, a imbalance in your vata. According to Ayurveda, right? You are vata, kapha, pitta, right? That's how Ayurveda looks at it, right? Like it tries to balance these three.
So what are these three? Because I've heard my grandfathers and your dad speak about these things, like even on the dinner table, but I don't understand the thing he's saying.
So it's just, what is your constitution, right? Like, is your constitution more airy? Is it more earthy? Is it more fire, right? Everyone has like a disposition. Their body is in a certain way. Like you see, for example, that someone might get bloated a little bit quicker, right? So they have a certain disposition. I'm not an Ayurvedic expert, but all I'm saying is that if something is out of balance within those three, then it leads to certain symptoms. So, for example, when they say that vata is imbalanced, it may lead to things like depression or anxiety. It promotes that sort of feeling, that sadness. So, then the practical side is that go and get it checked out. Okay, as much as spirituality will give you the framework, you actually have to do practical things. So, what is that practical thing? Go and check maybe your B12. Is your B12 low? Is your vitamin D low? Because all these things, if your body is not operating in the most optimum way, then get that optimum kind of situation for your health, and then maybe the problem will fix itself. Okay, because a lot of times it is because of some sickness that you have. Is it because your gut is completely like being hammered by processed food? Sometimes, gut brain connection, a lot of people are speaking about
like
that.
there's like a lot of stuff about the microbiome and like eating fruits and veg like improves your gut microbiome.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
so I think you have to heal holistically. So spirituality is part of that, but then also making sure your gut is taken care of, your microbiome, like what you said. Seeing that, is there an imbalance in your body? And also, again, like the triggers for these things like mental health can come from so many different places. They can come from trauma. If you've been abused as a child, then you're going to, and if you haven't kind of like spoken it through, processed it, right, it can be some sort of trauma in your body, wherever it's stored. It can be stored in your hips, it can be stored in your chest, right? And it might not appear for many years, but one day comes knocking on your door like a debt and says, oh, by the way, I'm here and you have to pay this. So you have to deal with it. Now, there's practical ways to deal with it. There's medicinal ways to deal with it. Whether you use allopathy, homeopathy, Ayurveda, that's an individual choice. And I think each one has, people will say different things. Again, I'm not an expert in the field, but all I can say is that spiritual will help give framework. But if your vata is imbalanced, right? For example, then spirituality alone won't help you. And so, to give another more practical example, is that if you've broken your leg, you can go to a temple, but you have to have an extremely high level of faith to get that
Yeah.
fixed. It's happened, but only for those people who have so much faith. And I can even share real stories of that, that people have actually cured their broken leg through faith alone,
Wow.
right? I know two stories like that, right? Real life incidences. And again, not like, 5,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, something you read in a book,
Recent.
like really
Okay.
recent. But I wouldn't recommend that for everyday people who don't have that full level of faith. So if you don't have that level of faith, then go to a doctor, go to a practitioner, and get it cured on that level.
So, is spirituality or religion based on faith, or are there other factors? Because you said that, someone who wants to get their broken leg cured, who doesn't have a lot of faith, shouldn't necessarily go to a temple.
It's not that they don't have faith, but it's practical. So I'll give you an example. If anyone goes to, there's an episode in the Ramayana, which is the life of Lord Ram, written by the sage Valmiki. So in there was an incident where Indrajit shot an arrow and wounded Lakshman very badly. Now, he was wounded so badly that when the doctor came to see him, he said his pulse is extremely low, and at the rate it's going, he will probably lose his life before sunrise. So at that time, they asked him, like, is there any remedy for this? And he said there's a herb, but it's all the way in the Himalayas. And for you to be able to go there within one night and come back and give him that medicine, it
That's
almost,
impossible.
yeah, it
Yeah.
seems
Because
impossible.
they were in South India, or no, they were in Lanka, to be
They were
exact.
in
Yeah,
Lanka,
sorry, they were in Lanka.
right? So they were in Lanka. So Lanka to Himalayas in one night. I don't think any airline could do it. I don't think Emirates could do it, right? Despite how good they are. So the thing is, but there was one person who had a lot of hope. Yeah, that was Hanumanji. So Hanuman went all the way to the Himalayas, got the herb required, right, along with the whole mountain, and he bought the whole mountain because he had that level of power, and that was it. And then so the herb was given. So it shows the practicality that medicine also has to be given, right? And we're dealing with um, the Lord and his prime expansion, Sheshnagji, right? Or Lakshman, or we can call that Balatattva. So we're dealing with the Lords themselves, but yet they're showing that when sickness happens, you have faith in the ultimate destiny of the Lord, but do what's practical as well. Now, if your faith is so high that you can fix your leg by just your kind of like your divine thought, but you have to be of that level of divinity. Most of us are not. So therefore, the practical comes in. So there's a movie which has come out, Maha Avatar Narsimha. Prahlad was operating on a very high frequency of faith, like full faith. See, you might have 20% faith, 30% faith. I might have a similar level, right? Other people might have 2% faith. We don't know. But Prahlad had so much faith, and that's why no matter what his father put him through, right? Try to throw him off a cliff, try to burn him by fire, put him in a pit of like poisonous snakes, nothing happened to him because he had so much faith. So I would say that there's only very few people who should have a broken leg and fix it by faith. Majority of us should seek practical remedies.
Okay. So you told me the story of Hanumanji going all the way from Sri Lanka all the way to the Himalayas and back. Now, and he came back with a whole mountain.
Yeah.
And how long ago was Ramayana?
So, according to the Vedic scriptures, Ramayana happened about 800,000 years ago.
Oh wow, that's a long time.
A long time.
So, you see, like if we think about it like right now, to think for someone to lift up a whole mountain and take it to another country, it seems a bit like we're not able to understand that, or we might question, is that really real, or did that really happen, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, science seems to sort of pose these questions against what maybe happened in history.
Yeah.
So, is there any harmony between science and religion?
I think there's two layers to your questions, right? The first is, how can we understand someone picking up a mountain
Yeah, how can we understand some things
and
which are quite
transporting
like,
it?
you know, supernatural, and they're not
Okay.
just like ordinary things that happen
All
on a
right.
daily basis here?
If I told my great grandfather that in 100 years' time, I will be able to talk to you. If I told my great grandfather that in 100 years' time, humans will be able to talk to each other and see each other face to face despite living on a completely different continent and different time zone, would he believe me?
It depends, like, you know, how open minded he was.
But at that time, they had no vision of such technology.
Perhaps not then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or even my great great grandfather. The thing is that we shouldn't think that. Here's the problem. The modern mind thinks that technological advancement is only happening now in the last 100 years or so, right? Give or take. But actually, we should be aware that there are technologies that were very ancient. They don't use the same method as today. They're more subtle technologies, but those technologies existed. So today, like if, for example, we can fly from London to America in 3 hours because the Concorde kind of was faster than the speed of sound. Okay. And then they discontinued it. But the point is that that's modern technology, but there's something which is called ancient technologies. Now people are discovering it. I want to give an example of that. Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't follow him so much, but in my research, I've seen videos. And by the way, when I say I don't follow him so much, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that, I've just seen a few of his videos. And the one thing that struck me was that he was able to heal his spine by intention alone. He lay on his bed and fixed his spine by just his intention.
As in just by thoughts.
By his thought process. He healed himself.
And this is recent, right?
Just, I don't know. Again, I don't know the exact time, but maybe like 15 years ago. So today, he's like, I think millions of people follow him because he says something simple, that if thoughts can make you sick, then those same thoughts can cure you. Now, is that technological advancement or what? Doctors had given up on him. They said, you'll never be able to walk again. But he cured himself. Ramdev, another example. Ramdev was paralyzed. Through yoga, he cured himself. Yoga is breathing, it's postures.
As in Ramdev was a saint, or?
He's Baba Ramdev. So today, modern yoga is actually, yoga has become very famous because of Baba Ramdev, especially in India. So about 20 years ago, right, I would say suddenly there's like a gradual revolution in yoga. So Baba Ramdev started appearing like on these major channels, and he would literally sit there and tell people, for 40 minutes, we're going to do a breathing session on TV. So
that's so cool.
So by the way, Didima and Dadubai, they actually used to sit there and breathe with Ramdev sitting on the floor of the sitting room.
That's so cute. Was I alive then, or was?
No, no, because this was um, this was just before me and your mother got married.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was 20 years ago. So you're 17. So that revolution actually just started at that time. And then people will say, okay, we're going to Baba Ramdev's camp. We're going to do yoga camp for like 5 days, 3 days. And Dadubai and Didima, right? They actually even went for one of them, right? And they got like good seats and they were doing it. So that revolution was created. So yoga, just by breathing, so many diseases have been cured, which modern medicine, which has been invested in by with millions and billions of dollars, they couldn't cure. By breathing, it's cured. So my point is that we're just scratching the surface of what the body is capable of doing, what the mind is capable of doing, right? And therefore, if 800,000 years ago, my proposal is that people were much more advanced back in those days than we are today. And then to answer the second part of your question is that do science and spirituality go hand in hand? There is an overlap, but also they come from different schools of thought. Science tries to prove things by perception. What you can perceive with your senses, science is putting thousands of dollars into that, millions of dollars, billions of dollars to prove something that we can see through a microscope, a telescope, through with our eyes. That's how it proves things, because we only want proof of something using our senses, or you can say our eyes. But spirituality is using proof of things, not only using the senses, but using the subtle senses, which means the third eye, which means the gut. That's why we say gut instinct. Someone might appear very nice and fancy to me and you, but there's something, sometimes our gut says that this is not a good person. You can't trust them.
Like the intuition.
Intuition. How will you prove intuition with science? How will science prove intuition? And a lot of times people's intuitions are right.
Like mom has a really like sharp intuition. Like she can tell if someone is like, straight, or if they're a bit,
I think ladies who are of a certain nature, a lot of women have this intuition, and a lot of times they're right. A lot of times you have two people having, like a couple having dinner, and the guys are just there discussing business, and the men are there doing their business talk. And sometimes the wife might come and say, I don't think you should do business with this person. There's something which seems a little off. That's their intuition.
and she can't really prove it.
You can't prove it. That's what I'm saying.
You just get like a vibe.
You get a vibe. So how is science going to prove that that person's a crook or not? Okay, you can go on Google, but let's say there's nothing on Google. So many times there's nothing. But it turns out that that person was a crook.
Yeah.
So science comes from a different field of trying to prove something. And spirituality is using not only the perception of the naked senses, but it's also trying to use the perception of the subtle senses. So I think science and spirituality, in some ways, they can gel together. And in some ways, science admits it doesn't understand so much. Like if you look at the universe, right? They don't understand like majority of the universe, which is like dark energy and dark matter. I think that combined comes to like 97% of the universe. They don't understand what that is. So the thing is that science can point a particular way, but science may keep on changing as well. Do you see? You figure something out and then it changes.
That's very true.
And then a few years later, something else will be proved that completely obliterates the previous research. Whereas spirituality is a constant. That's the difference. Science is, if we observe scientific studies, experiments, and
It's
conclusions.
ever changing. It's
It's
trial and error.
yeah, it's trial and error, and some things do stick,
Yeah.
right? Like the law of gravity is there,
Mm.
right? But so many things, they get refined as well.
Mm.
But spirituality, it comes from a certain truth, and that truth kind of sticks throughout time, right? Even if thousands of years go by.
All right, cool. So I think you answered that question quite in depth. So we touched base on like science, like trying to prove things constantly, and it's constantly changing, like according to its development. There's Darwin's theory of evolution, which basically states that we originated from apes. So, what does spirituality have to say about that?
If you look at the Vedic version of spirituality, it's completely different. It doesn't agree with that view. So I think there's Darwinism and then there's also neo Darwinism, right? So Darwin's idea, but with modifications based on what they've seen. So the Vedic version does not subscribe to Darwin's theory, nor does it subscribe to neo Darwinism. If anyone wants to know quite a lot about this subject matter, there's two books which I would actually recommend them to read. And that is, the first is called Forbidden Archaeology. And the subtitle is The Hidden History of the Human Race. And what they've done is they've come out with thousands of various different types of evidence to show that humans or Homo sapiens have existed way beyond 100,000 years ago, which is what Darwin suggests, that the prototype that we are right now, like standing up, right, like with standing up on two legs and walking and talking and with a certain level of intelligence,
Yeah.
that came about. That final evolution came about 100,000 years ago. Okay, but if you look at forbidden archaeology, so many different pieces of evidence which have been carbon tested in all the different methodologies, showing, for example, that there was a human locket which was found. So lockets can only be created by people
by
like
us, yeah,
like
not by
humans
apes.
of this level of evolution, right? Like if you can't give a chimpanzee gold and expect it to create a locket.
I mean, they are quite intelligent, to be fair, but not as intelligent as
Yeah,
us.
so not as evolved as to make like pieces of jewelry. No one's ever seen that, right? But we do. So what happened was that they carbon tested this particular. I mean, there's so much evidence, but just one thing that I can recall is that there was a locket, and that locket was carbon tested to be 800,000 years old. That piece
I
of
actually
jewelry.
saw something like quite similar on Instagram the other day. I was scrolling, as you do, and there was an idol or a murti of Lord Shiva.
Yes.
And they like carbon tested it, and it was like 600,000 years old. So, and they were like, this is like completely contradicted what science currently believes in, because they only believe that we've existed for a certain amount of years. So,
Yeah. So I guess we would have to verify, like, because I think a lot of stuff on social media can be like, I always have to check the source of
Yeah,
social
that's
media, because sometimes it can just be by some random person or whatever. But I guess the idea, yes, but the authenticity comes from this book, because it's literally gone so deep, and he wasn't even able to present everything in the book because the book would become too massive. But what it does is it shows that the human race is much more ancient than what Darwin has proposed. So it almost slaps the theory. And it does. It's a slap on the face of that theory. Then what they did is then they wrote another book, because they got such a reaction from the scientific community, because they were baffled, because they came up with this concept in the book called knowledge filtering. And what knowledge filtering is basically like, the government knew about this, but they hid it from the public, because then they would have to reinvent the entire schooling system. They would have to reinvent this idea that, we come from God, actually, if they were to believe everything, and they did. But the problem is, then they would have to say, actually, yeah, we do come from God, the creationism theory. And if we do, then the power eventually starts shifting back to the church. And for political reasons, people don't want that, right? You don't want, people don't like the idea of losing power and control. But anyway, that's into the, spiritual politics of a situation. So they wrote a book called Impact. And that book shows the impact that had on the scientific community, which is a very strong one. So then many scientists came back and said, all right, you've written forbidden archaeology, which proves that Darwin's theory is actually doesn't hold itself very well. You've actually written a book called Impact to show that what impact that has had on thinking. And finally, what is your proposal then? And so then they wrote a third book called Human Devolution.
Devolution.
Devolution. So which
De-evolution or
devolution, same thing,
devolution?
which means that we don't evolve into who we are today. In fact, in previous times, we were much more superior in a lot of ways. As time has gone on, we have less power, we have less cognitive ability. Our ability to remember has shrunk. Our body sizes have shrunk. Because if you look at the Vedic texts, there's four different ages. There's something called Satya Yug, or the age where truth was very powerful. And people used to actually mention people used to live up to 100,000 years.
Wow.
We live till 100. So our age has shrunk. People were much bigger. And it's not that people were bigger and trees were smaller. It's not that we were all at the height of trees. Trees were bigger. Everything was much more bigger. But as time is going on, there's a shrinkage in all different ways. So that book is trying to show that we're actually devolving. We're not evolving.
Okay. And that's true, because you mentioned a Sanskrit verse from, is it the Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah.
And like you were talking for like 5 minutes on it, and there was just like 4 words.
Yeah.
And which kind of shows that maybe our intellect has also sort of decreased slightly.
Everything, right? And you see that again, why has our intellect decreased? Because I think it's to do with the way we're living with nature. We're eating more artificial food. We're consuming a lot of our water. A lot of our water is consumed from plastic. I think there's residual plastic in the water that we drink. Because today, when me and you go to the kitchen, we just literally take water from a plastic bottle. The water might be very good.
Microplastics and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, microplastics. So the water at the source might be very good water, but by the time it's bottled, it's in that plastic. God knows what temperatures it's gone through, right, in the process of getting to us. So we're consuming water. Is food organic? Not necessarily. In
There's
between,
pesticides and
all that kind of stuff. In between, right? We're eating a lot of junk food, right? Because we feel like it, right? Restaurant food. Do we know that the restaurant has the consumer's health as the core interest? Often it doesn't. It's about profits, right? It doesn't want to kill that person. It wants that person to come back, but it also wants to make, it wants to make a profit. So all I'm saying is that our lifestyle has changed so much. And so therefore it has an effect on our intelligence, our memory and understanding also. And remember, understanding is not just understanding that, okay, this is a glass and it's solid. There's something which is called subtle intelligence. And I think that is also depleting with time because our energy and vibration is also shrinking.
So my next question to you is spirituality individual or can it be expressed within a community?
It has to be both. It has to be both. You see, and also it depends which yoga system you are applying, because remember, spirituality is very broad. So within spirituality, there are 4 types. One is basically spiritualizing your action. In the Bhagavad Gita or in the Vedic texts, they call that karma yoga. That means that whatever activities you're doing, you link it Yeah, yoga means to link to God in some way. Okay, so that's one type of spirituality. Another, so that's the yoga of action, right? Then there's something called Gyan Yoga. Gyan Yoga means the yoga of detachment, okay? Where you understand that this world is temporary, nothing's going to last. On top of that, there's quite a few pockets of misery that you will experience. So if everything's temporary, then why engage with this world? Why don't I detach myself? And why don't I go for, like, complete, like, self-realization? So Gyan Yoga promotes that, and you'll see various isms and paths, maybe Buddhism and maybe its sister religions. They're pushing the idea of Gyan Yoga, so to link with God through detaching the mind and the senses. Then there is something called Raja Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is basically, again, it's a spiritual system, but through, you're trying to realize what they call the super soul, or
The Atma?
the Atma, or the Param Atma. So we have Atma, we have soul. And with our soul, there is a overlay, right, of another soul. And that is called the Paramatma, the paramount Atma. So the word paramount comes from the word param. So Param Atma. And that Param Atma is, you can say, like a divine spark of God Himself, right? Or the localized version of God Himself seated in the heart. So what you're trying to do is discover Him through the Ashtanga Yoga process or the Raja Yoga process. So the yoga that people do today, breathing, right, is called Ashtanga. It literally in Sanskrit means the yoga of 8 parts, right? Starting with yam, things not to do, niyam, things to do, right? Asana, pranayam, all that. So that's also a spiritual system. And then there is Bhakti Yoga, which is actually considered to be the king of yogas. If you read the Bhagavad Gita carefully and analyze it, Bhakti Yoga is the king of all these 4 yogas. In fact, all of these yogas ultimately fold into Bhakti Yoga. Okay, but you'd have to study the text to see how it does this.
The Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, you'd have to study the Bhagavad Gita text to see why Bhakti Yoga is presented as the ultimate yoga by the text itself. Okay, so all these are spiritual systems. Okay, all 4 of them. But some are done together and some are done individually. So, for example, Dhyan, meditation, is an individual activity. So if you're sitting meditating, that's individual. If you are basically chanting, right, certain mantras, that's individual. In fact, at that time, you want as less people as possible. You should kind of lock yourself and do it exclusively for the best results. But then in Bhakti Yoga, there is a recommendation, because it's split into 9 powerful processes in Bhakti Yoga. And one of them is called Kirtan. And Kirtan means literally to glorify, and to also, and an effective way to do Kirtan is to sing. Now, it's boring to sing alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so powerful that when you see that 1,000 people, when they come together, and then you participate in that kirtan, that vibration is crazy. It's mental. It's beautiful. So that you should do collectively. Okay. And then there is something called hearing, right? Shravana. Shravan means hearing or reading or understanding or learning, right? So that has to be done. At least 2 people are required, a teacher and a student. That shouldn't actually be done individually. You can research yourself, but ultimately, it's always good to go back to a guide and a proper teacher who's understood the text itself, and just make sure that your understanding is correct. So you're taught it. So again, that requires 2 people. So Bhakti Yoga is especially one type of yoga that it is mostly done in a group, except when you're supposed to do what they call japa, chanting mantras alone. But even japa, it's seen that you can do it in a community setting. So it means that it's individual yet community. So you can have in a room like 20 people, 200 people, it doesn't matter, two people. And though they're chanting together in the same space, it's still individual. It's your consciousness trying to connect with the divine, with God.
Okay. Another question that I have is, why are we here? And why did God create souls if he can function perfectly on his own?
Again, I refer to Sanskrit and the texts that come from that language. God is referred there as something which is called Atma Rama. Rama means to play, right? Or to chill, to enjoy, right? And Atma means soul. So God is known as someone who can perfectly chill within himself. He doesn't need anyone or anything to be happy. He is an undisturbed entity. So sometimes people ask, what is the difference between us and God? God is undisturbed. We are disturbed. Anything can disturb us. A mosquito can disturb us. A shower can disturb us if the water is too hot or too cold. Food can disturb us if it's not digested carefully. So if you look at us, we by function get disturbed and distracted very easily. God is in an eternal state of being undisturbed. There's nothing you can do to disturb him. Okay? But yet, God has one quality, and that is to expand. He's ever expanding. And because of that thing which I mentioned, Atma, right, situated within himself, and Rama, which means to play. And to play, one expands. So, for example, we're using a material example to understand something spiritual. So it's not perfect, but it'll give us a direction. If you call one person for dinner, right, like one friend, it's fun. But if you call 5 of your friends, then it's really fun.
Sure.
Okay. So technically, you could just eat by yourself and you're perfectly okay, right? Because you will actually fulfill the desire of like being full at the end of it. So you're fine. Yeah. I'm giving a relative example that you just want food. As long as food is available, you're fine. Yeah. You're chilled. But to create fun, you want to expand. So instead of one friend, you can have 5 friends. That makes it even more fun. So, in the same principle that even though God is undisturbed completely, he's expanding. And in his expansion, what he does is he creates variety. And that variety, or part of that variety, is us. The only difference is that we are a type of being, a type of living entity, a living being that has the ability to either move to the spiritual side, which means we can have full connection with him, or we can be turned away from him, which means we can have a full material experience. Where we choose to be, now that now depends on our choice, which again depends on our knowledge, right? So without opening that bit up, right, because we spoke about free will, but ultimately the living being can choose to either be in a material state or a spiritual state. It has this ability to move between the two. But what God does is, though he doesn't need anything, he expands to increase his enjoyment because he is an ever expanding person or a principle.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like if a father and a mother get together and they produce a child, and the child has a choice whether to be very attached to their parents, or maybe they also have a choice to be slightly more independent and away from the parents.
Yeah. So, as a microcosm, that's a really good example that a husband and wife, they like each other. They may not need anything to, they may not need anyone or anything. They're kind of good in themselves. But why do they have children? To expand enjoyment. They technically don't need it, right? It's not like their life will be miserable without it. But they have children. But within those children, you have the ability, the child has the ability, exactly what you said, to say, well, look, after a certain age, I like you, and I want to stay close to you, or I don't like you, and I want my own journey.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So, branching off from that, why did a perfect God create an imperfect world?
This world is not imperfect at all. This world functions. If you remove humans from this world will function in perfect harmony. Animals will live. Yes, they will, like the lions will attack the gazelle, but the world will continue to function because more gazelles will be produced, lions will survive. The point is, species will survive and continue to thrive in their own nature. What wrecks it is human intervention. If you see everything that has been wrecked in this world, whether it's air quality, whether it's the things that have been put into the ocean, over the last so many years, plastics, there's documentaries on what plastic has done to oceans. That's all been led by humans. So it's actually human interference on all levels, practical and on a level of relationship. So whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, everything that has been wrecked in this world has actually come from humans. So the imperfection has been led by us, not by God. God has created a very naturally functioning world. The sun rises at the same time every day. And if the seasons change, then when the next season comes, again, it pretty much rises at exactly the same time and sets at the same time within those seasons. So you can see there's a consistency in nature. The inconsistent element is us.
I like that because, so I study biology and there's various experiments that we do under a microscope, and we can see how in each cell, there's an organelle that has a specific function specific to the cell, and therefore the whole muscle or the tissue functions properly. So you can see that there are so many small details in life that they add up for a reason, and if one of those functions don't work, then the entire system just collapses. So yeah, it does
Yeah.
make a lot of sense.
So I guess you can say nature has a rhythm. Nature has harmony. And nature ultimately has come from that supreme being. So let's call him God for the sake of clarity. So God has created this world with a certain level of harmony. But as soon as humans come into the fold, and I'm not saying in terms of like suddenly humans came, like this world had no humans in it and they suddenly came. But let's say you removed all the humans, you put them on one massive spaceship, right? And you took them and just put them in Mars and said, you're going to be here for the next 100 years, right? And here's food and water, and we'll take you back to Earth. A lot of the Earth will start repairing itself.
Yeah, that's true. We
Isn't
should
it?
tell Elon Musk.
Yeah. So the thing is that nature it's almost like it itself produces itself. It sustains itself. That's how God has produced nature. And humans, unfortunately, now we can decide whether to work with nature or to go against nature. And the more modern we're becoming, the more we're actually working against nature. And that is what is wrecking everything.
Have you watched this documentary called A Life on Our Planet by David Attenborough?
No.
So there's this so he starts off with this scene where there's Chernobyl. Have you heard of it? There was like a nuclear explosion, and it's been like a deserted city, like no one lives there, it's dead. And then now all of a sudden, like nature has started to take over, and like trees are growing, and like from a place that was once thought that it's dead, like no life can live there, like nature's like beginning to just blossom there.
Yeah, exactly. So it just shows that everything that works in harmony with nature, it becomes a spectacle. Why do people pay so much money to go to Masai Mara? Because they're seeing animals work in their own environment and nature. So it's something so authentic. People like authenticity, but the problem is those very people, they love authenticity, but on the other hand, they'll go and do something which is so inauthentic to their own nature. So then you've got the other side, which we have to deal with.
True. Another question that I have is that what is the purpose of life then? Like, why are we here? What are we here to do?
So this question can be understood in two different ways. The first is that the purpose of it's how you look at it. It's from what standpoint you are, right? But if you look at what all the ancient texts are saying, is that you have one ultimate purpose, okay? But you have to lead up to that purpose. So the ultimate purpose is to escape the cycle of birth and death. And that can only be done in the human form of life. Because we have the ability to question. No animal questions its existence. No chimpanzee and no snake has ever asked, why are we here? Okay? All they can do is they can survive. And maybe like chimpanzees and certain monkey species, they can organize things a little bit, but not anywhere near to the extent that humans can. Humans organize things, right? In certain ways, they can plan for the future. Animals can, but they can plan for a very short window of future, right? Like a lion attacking like a gazelle. So it's planning for its future, but it's a short window. A lion will never say that let's create this dwelling place because in 20 years' time we can see that weather patterns are changing. So this will be the best place because there's a lot of water here. Lions can't plan like that, right? So humans have an extra function. They have intelligence. They can question their origin. And when they question their origin, therefore they start to discover the real purpose of life. So you use the aid of two things: ancient scriptural texts and sages who actually live in harmony with that wisdom, because then they experience it. So when we come across those sages who are actually living that philosophy, then we realize that this works. It installs that faith in us that there's something real here, right? So the ultimate purpose is to escape the cycle of birth and death. But there's a gradual way of coming to that point. So what what Vedas basically suggest is a four-stepped approach, which is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. If I translate that into English, all it means is a foundation of religion, spirituality, morality, duty. Next, artha means expansion of wealth and desirable things to allow you to function, right? Like clothes, you have to acquire clothes. So there's no one in this world who can, for example, survive without money, not even sages.
Right.
Because even sages, in this day and age, right, they need to buy food. In previous times, maybe not, because they could pick food from trees and orchards, and right. So, but let's talk about today. Today, I would say most people need money. And so, to the extent which caters for their needs, we acquire wealth. Then, fulfillment of desires. Everyone's desires are different, right? Like just a few minutes ago, we were talking with someone who had a passion for cars. So you need money for that. Someone has a passion for fine dining. So you need money for that. Someone wants a very big house. You need money for that. Someone wants to experience amazing holidays and see the world. So artha, which means accumulation of wealth and possessions, and kama. And then from those accumulation, you start fulfilling your desires, right? So that those are two important things as well in the intermittent stages. But then towards the end of your life, it's recommended that you look towards moksha. Moksha means now exiting. Because at the time of death, you have two choices, either to reroute and come back into this world or to exit. So the purpose of life, if you look at it from the scriptural point of view, is to exit. But for some people, it may be to just perpetually try and see how much enjoyment they can extract from this world. But that has its dangers.
So, like you said, that everyone's trying to extract enjoyment from this world as much as they can.
Yeah.
So, what is happiness, and is it possible to be constantly happy?
Happiness has to be understood. So, the first part of your question, there is material happiness and there is organic spiritual happiness. Material happiness is basically just sometimes when you're not in distress. So the interesting thing is there's a lot of happiness we experience is actually when we're not in a state of distress, which isn't real happiness. I'll give you an example. When you eat food, right? So this is a question for you. When you're really hungry and you eat food, are you happy or did you just mitigate your distress?
I mitigated my distress.
There you go. So a lot of times what we experience to be happiness is actually just the filling of a hole which we're experiencing. The hole in the stomach is filled by food. So we say, oh, I'm happy now. Yeah, I'm good now. We don't have any friends. And then a friend comes along. So then we're like, okay, now we're happy. But we're just filling that hole that we needed in our heart or in our mind, that we don't have a friend. A lot of people aren't getting married these days. So as soon as they find like a man or a woman, right, to be their partner for life, suddenly they're really happy. Is that happiness, or did you just feel something that was lacking in your life?
So, happiness is just the absence of distress.
Most of the time, yeah, it really is. And you can analyze this again and again, and you will see it. That there's a lack of something, you fill that void, and you think you're happy. But even if we say that there is happiness in this world, the other problem is that distress follows it. It's cyclical, right? So wisdom is that happiness and distress, another quote from Gita, happiness and distress comes like seasons. No matter what you do, you're going to face the opposite. I'll tell you something which is really interesting, and it's a principle of how the mind works. That if every year, let's say that you work for a really big company and that company gives you, as an executive, a Rolex as a bonus, right? Some type of Rolex or a watch which is that expensive.
I want to join that company.
Yeah, but listen to this bit then. But a true story is that one time, this company gave their executives Rolexes. Okay, so I used it as general example, but let me get specific. They did that, and because they wanted to gift their executives and keep them happy. The 1 year that they didn't, which was after about like 4 years, and they got like just a ticket to like a local hotel for like a couple of nights, with their partner. They were so angry. So imagine that you actually got 4 different types of like Rolex type level watches. And
Yeah,
so
over a
you were
few
happy
years.
for all those years. And then just the 1 year you didn't get it, you basically lost your gratefulness. You got angry even though you got something. So happiness sometimes is very interesting because you often find that it's just your perception that needs changing for you to become happy or sad. So even though, be it thou, happiness and distress just come like waves. But there is a different type of happiness now, something which not a lot of people realize. In Christianity, they call it joy, right? In Sanskrit, it's called Ananda. And generally, it can be also referred to as bliss. So Srila Prabhupada, who was the founder of the ISKCON movement, he turned Ananda into bliss. He translated it as bliss. So what does bliss mean? So try and understand this principle. Happiness is something that can come and go. So is distress. But bliss is something which, upon entering your heart and your consciousness, it just expands from that region. It keeps on increasing. That bliss, not many people have experienced, just because most people aren't looking for happiness in spiritual, they're looking for happiness in the material. But when you do experience it, now that can be classified as true happiness.
Okay.
Because the other type of happiness, the problem is it doesn't last. Remember, scriptures are on your side. They're looking with you. They're like, let's look how you can be most happy. Let's give you a car. But after 1 month, you'll be looking for, something which is equivalent or even better.
So essentially, like people are trying to look for happiness in temporary objects or things,
Yes,
and you're proposing that there is happiness in something that's eternal.
of course. Think about it. Remember, no object in this world has real happiness embedded in it. Be it a car, be it a watch, be it a person. It's not embedded with happiness. For example, if if you buy sugar, sugar is embedded with sweetness, right? So therefore, no matter what you put sugar to, it'll become sweeter. Okay? But the thing is, in this world, right, there's nothing which is embedded with that pure nature of happiness except something which is coming from the spiritual. That's embedded with real happiness. So we're looking in the wrong places. All we do is we cure distress for some time, and then that cure, it only lasts a short period of time, and then it's just a matter of time before we need to fill it again. And that's the problem. That's the problem which everyone faces.
I have friends from various backgrounds. Some are Christian, some are Hindu, some are Sikh. Is the experience of something called love of God, or maybe in Sikhism it's called Prem, different in a formed God or a God which is formless?
So I think we have to break it down into levels of happiness. Again, coming back to kind of the same thing. Whether you're a Christian or whether you're this ism or Hinduism or that ism, we talk about a principle. Happiness from this world is fleeting. So you have to look elsewhere if you want something permanent. Now, in the permanent location of happiness, which we call now the spiritual realm, there is one type of happiness which in Sanskrit is called Brahmananda, which just means the happiness of experiencing the first location of divinity. That may sound complicated, but just experiencing spiritual energy will make you really happy, even if you just experience it. So, for example, all right, so I'll give like an example of that. Imagine you live in a country which was like riddled with like strife and violence and war and all these things.
Yeah.
And just one day you were able to escape and just get out and come onto the other side of a country which didn't have any of
Like
that.
in Israel at the moment.
Yeah, like Israel at the moment, or whatever, Ukraine maybe. Yeah, I don't know if they've done like a full ceasefire or not, but let's just say the principle that you've escaped. The minute you go through those doors or that fence, right, and you go onto the other side, the experience of freedom is what will give you happiness. Nothing is coming from that country, just the experience that you're free,
Free from that burden.
free from that burden. That gives you happiness. But you haven't even experienced 1 ounce of that country, what that country has to offer. So, spirituality, when you're free from material clutches, yeah, so then you experience one type of happiness of belonging in the spiritual realm. But now, if you experience God as a being, remember, He is a being like us and yet completely different from us. How many people have described who have experienced, and this is thousands of people from different eras. So if you go by their experience, the first thing they will tell you is that He is human like and yet not at all human. So Christianity hints at this. It says man is made in the image of God,
Yeah.
but they are so different, right? And so the biggest challenge is that you're dealing with a being who is transmaterial, transcendental, which means that we have never come across anyone or anything like him. Nothing. We don't have that in our experience. Okay, so we're trying to understand something which is spiritual, although our senses are coming from the material sphere. So you're using something material to experience something which is spiritual. It's very difficult. It's almost impossible, right? It's like trying to explain a tree by using its shadow. And that's one of the best examples that I've come across, that a tree is 3D, right? It's colorful. It's got life in it. It's got different textures in different parts of the tree. It's maybe it has fruits, it has flowers, so it has smell, it has sight. Shadow has none of those things because it's just a reflection. So you can understand that humans are like that shadow, and God is like the physical tree itself at worst. Okay? So when you have God as a being, but something very super mundane, now what happens is there's something which is augmented, which is called relationship dynamic. So if God is just a pure energy, you can't have relationship dynamic because ultimately you just merge with that. So you may have what they call some experience of it, which is much better than the material. But now, if you have a dynamic relationship with God as a being, as a person who talks, who walks, and interacts with you, that now is on another level. And here is what I want to say about that, just to sum this bit up. The best example of that was an ancient personality, not a mythological personality, but an ancient personality called Shukadev. Shukadev had experience of this being completely like not of the material plane and consciousness. He wasn't in these dualities of like, hate, all these things, right? So he was experiencing something very, very beautiful and transmaterial, but not on the level of God. It's almost like you experience the freedom of passing the gate and just being like, I'm free now from tyranny. But then when his father said, I've got something to teach you, and he started speaking about the spiritual qualities of God, what he is really like as a person, what his nature is. Now, Shukadev Goswami said, I became addicted to that, and I even left the concept of being submerged into his existence, being submerged in that spiritual existence. That now held no value for me. Just like Now, if you've experienced a country with all its parks, its flowers, its beauty, the city, the buildings, the people, now you've really entered the city. So once you do that and you have a house there, you're not going to be happy by just staying on the border, right? So, in some way, that may help to explain this idea that material life is like, we don't realize, but it's like living in a country where there is war. At times it's okay, right? And at times we're just in,
We're just fighting for our
gunfire, the
life, yeah.
gunfire of life, social media, distress, relationships, breakups, all these things that life throws at us and we throw at life as well, right? It's two-way. Then the first step in spirituality is to get out. So that's like being just on the other side of the border, right? You're free. No one's going to attack you now. So that feeling of happiness is like the feeling of an impersonal God because you're free from material dualities and you're merged in that free state of energy where nothing's going to bother you anymore. But then now, as you go further and further into that city, then now you start experiencing the city and these people. Imagine the people are happy because they're living a life of freedom. They don't have war over there,
Yeah.
right? And all the buildings are intact, and there's restaurants, and there's happy people walking on the streets. And so now you're submerged into that dynamic. So that gives you an idea or a direction of how it would be to interact with God, because that is more superlative. So even Shukadev himself admitted that I was submerged into this happiness of the non-personal God. But as soon as I heard about him, I completely let go of this impersonal idea, and I couldn't help myself but worship the Supreme Person. The problem is that a lot of people don't understand how evolved God's spiritual qualities are. So as soon as they experience something a little blissful, like, if they're sitting in a mountain meditating and for like 5 minutes, 1 hour, 3 hours, 2 hours, whatever, 3 days even, they experience this state of bliss. They think this is everything. They just haven't gone further. And Shukadev Goswami was one of the first people to say there's something much more to be had. Don't stop over here. You've just stopped at the border, right? Go further.
So it's like if someone who's never tried chocolate first, they try like maybe Cadbury's chocolate and they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then they don't realize, but there's also Swiss chocolate, which is 100% authentic and
Yeah.
it's just next level.
Yeah. Or the other way I can put it is, imagine you have a stomach ache, right? And sometimes it's okay and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. But in reality, and you're just constantly hungry, then indigestion, da da da. And one day your stomach doesn't hurt, but the thing that you eat is like boiled vegetables. Okay? And you're just happy that, oh my God, I digested my food. I'm so happy. I digested my food for the first time. Right? But then someone is saying, go further. There's pizza, there's chips, there's ice cream, there's Swiss chocolate, like what you're saying. So I think a lot of people don't realize that their first step in spirituality, they think that it's the last step. But if you go deep into scriptures, there's many more steps to be had. And that's why there are 5 types of liberation. I won't go into that today because maybe it's beyond the scope of this discussion. But actually, mukti has 5 steps.
Okay, I think that's definitely some food for thought.
Yeah, maybe something to discover later on.
Last but not least, I ask you that why do bad things sometimes happen to good people or religious people or people who have faith in God, and good things happen to people who do bad things, who may be atheist or who like may be absolutely faithless?
Just wait and watch. Just wait. Everything will fix itself. When you rob a bank, the first few weeks of your life are very happy. But all that time, the police are gathering evidence. They're figuring things out. And then don't tell you what their next move is. They come very stealthily. But the day that door breaks open, and there are 50 gunmen and they catch you, yeah, then your life is over. So the problem is that we only look at a short period of time to judge whether someone is enjoying themselves or going through pain. That's why I said just wait and watch. And same applies now in the opposite way to the person who's spiritual but suffering. When someone starts their spiritual journey, the first thing that they have to do is they have to deal with their karmic debt. You're stirring a pot. All that karmic debt is at the bottom, and you stir it, and it starts coming to the surface because you stirred it. In Dubai, there is a law. You're not allowed to leave Dubai until you pay off your debt. They won't allow you to leave the country. You have to pay everything off. If you leave to come back, that's okay. Then you can elongate it. But to leave for good, that means you have to deal with everything today. Same way, if you're trying to exit the cycle of birth and death for good, which means you're stirring that spiritual pot, now you have to deal with everything. So all your debt now comes to the surface. You have to deal with everything first.
But then why is it that like sometimes that we see the result of our actions happening then and there and like sometimes later? For example, me and mom, we watched this series called Adolescence. It was quite popular. Everyone was talking about it. So we decided, okay, let's watch it. And there was this kid, and it's to do with knife crime in the UK. He stabbed one of his classmates, and I think he was like 10.
Yeah.
And the next morning after he stabbed his classmate, he like his sorry the local police, they came to his door, they knocked it down, and they were like, you know, you're under arrest. And the whole family was just like, seriously, like this kid is 10, how can he be like accused of murder? But then we see that sometimes there are people who have done horrific things, and justice doesn't seem to be like justice doesn't seem to happen that quickly.
Yeah. So it's karma doesn't work in the same fashion for every single person because there's a lot of nuances, right? There's a lot of things to consider. So karma is complex. There's a simple rule, but the way that it is meted out, there's a complexity to it. So, for example, if you're supposed to have a lot of enjoyment in this lifetime, karma will allow that enjoyment. But in the process of you enjoying yourself, you're also going to, if you don't have, you can say like ethics, morality, what they call dharma. If you're not a dharma atma, if you're not filled with virtue, in the process of enjoyment, you'll also hurt a lot of people along the way. So karma will allow you, okay, keep going. Let's see how far you go with this. And then at the end of your life, it'll say, right, this is how much chaos you've caused in your own life and the life of other people. And so then, therefore, it tries to met it out later. The government's duty is to try and finish that karma straight away. So there are two governments. One is the current government, which we have, whether we're living in the UK or Dubai or Kenya, wherever. And then there's a celestial government. What this government doesn't catch, the celestial government will catch it and then give it to you accordingly. So yeah, if you stab someone, okay, you'll get caught by the police. But if you stab someone intelligently, you won't get caught by the police because you know how to delay it. But that means you've only duped the government of this world. You'll never be able to dupe the government of the celestial world. And then it'll become even worse. So according to ancient scriptural laws, any punishment given straight away, it's small. The more you wait for it, it's like debt. It just keeps growing. So then that punishment that the celestial government will give you is much worse. So then you find that people in this lifetime who haven't done anything, they're suffering for an extended period of time. People don't understand why. And it's just because we don't have vision of their previous life or lives.
So this law of karma, it seems to be quite harsh. So how can a God who is omnibenevolent or all loving make such a rule like this?
It's not harsh. It's not harsh. It's fair and square. It's a very, very fair system of you do X and you get Y, right? Or meaning that whatever, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But yeah, the longer you leave it, it's like debt. If I owe you money and I say that I will give this back to you after 1 year with 8% interest, and then I wait instead of 1 year because I've given you inconvenience now for such a long period of time. So then it keeps mounting up. So naturally, I'm going to pay more debt. And if I'm just extremely clever, right, or extremely what they call like dubious, I may have ways, I may use that intelligence that I have wrongly and never pay that debt to you. I might even try and kill you if I'm extreme so that I don't have to pay the debt to you. And that's happened in so many situations, right? That I might do something that I don't have to suffer. But in reality, then later on, I'll have to suffer for it. So karma is a very fair system. The problem is that unfortunately, and I can say for myself as well, like I'm no exception, we humans are very selfish people. So we will try and do something wrong whenever we think we can get away with it, but we don't.
So we've discussed that we are ultimately eternal souls which exist in a material world, and we are eventually trying to exit from this cycle of birth and death.
Yeah.
So, does everyone have their own spiritual journey in the sense that does everyone eventually find God? And if so, is it necessary then to push their journeys?
Will everyone find God in some infinite time in the future? Again, like it crazy number. There's a very high possibility that they will. All that sages are trying to do, saints are trying to do, scriptures are trying to do, is that they're trying to shorten that journey. That's all it is. They're trying to.
So they're not disrupting the journey.
No, there's nothing to disrupt it because the living being doesn't even know, right? If scriptures didn't say anything, if sages didn't say anything, it doesn't even know that it's in Maya, what they call illusion. It has no idea that we're living in some illusory world which isn't real. It'll just go on living and acting and reacting to whatever society throws at it. So actually, it can go on in theory, it could go on infinitely. But therefore, there is propaganda, there is marketing done by the spiritual side that there is not much reality here. This is not your origin. Come to the origin. Jesus is part of that. Jesus came and said, "Don't build your kingdom in this world. Build your kingdom in God's world, so to speak." So that's alluding to the same fact that we're in a temporary situation, come to an eternal situation.
So this idea of like eternity in hell is false.
I mean, the thing is, how I look at it is that if you are to go, what is punishment for? Hell is a place so-called, let's believe that there's hell for a second. Hell is a place of punishment. What is punishment meant to do? It's meant to rectify.
Yeah, reformation.
Reformation. If you're there eternally, what good is that going to do? In fact, in one sense, it's like a waste of energy and resources. Because why would you actually create a place for someone to be there forever? You might as well. My personal thought is you just obliterate the soul entirely.
Yeah, just destroy it.
Just destroy it and destroy hell altogether. And all those who are going to go to hell, just destroy them before they even get there. Because then hell has no purpose.
True. Okay, so now, Baba, we're going to do a rapid fire round.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go on my phone and I'm going to read out these questions to you.
Okay.
And you
should I be scared?
Yes, you should. And you can only answer these questions in one word or one sentence. Is that okay?
Okay, I'm going to sit up because I'm too relaxed right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Can God get angry?
Yes.
Is it better to pray at home or at a religious center?
Most of the time at a religious center that you can connect with.
Okay. Do animals have souls?
Most definitely.
Is it better to spend time with someone who's nice but atheist, or to spend time with someone who's religious but not a nice person?
Ultimately, you should stay away from both.
Okay. Why can't a dog enter a temple?
What if it does like a susu or a pee pee randomly? Then what are you going to do?
Okay, fine. Do all paths lead to the same truth?
It depends if the person who started the path was self realized.
Can spiritual people lie?
Yes, they can and they should at times.
Is it wrong to question what's written in the scriptures?
You should question what's written in the scriptures.
Do you believe in ghosts?
If you've seen a ghost, who will tell you otherwise?
What's the worst thing you can do for your spiritual growth?
Hurt someone who is saintly.
What's the best thing you can do for your spiritual growth?
Be kind, generous, and serve someone who is saintly. That will unlock the door for everything.
Okay, so both questions, which are sort of similar, have the word saint in it.
Yes.
Last question. Who are your biggest spiritual idols?
So the people that have formed my spiritual journey and pushed it, Srila Prabhupada, my Diksha Guru Radha Govinda Maharaj, and my biggest inspiration, His Grace Aindra Prabhu.
Great. Thank you so much, Baba, for taking this time out and answering all of these questions. I hope they've helped people, and they've most certainly helped me.
Great.
Thank you guys so much for watching this podcast.
And I guess your idea was to have like a platform where the community could ask questions, because I know a lot of people have questions about spirituality.
So if any of you have any questions, please put them down in the comments or DM, and we will try our best to answer these questions in these sessions that we will have. Thank you so much. Namaste.